Hi, and welcome to the Live Beyond podcast. My name is McFarlane Muledi, and with me is Coach Lloyd
Marlow.
Okay, there we go. You know your own name.
Awesome to be here.
We're doing well this morning.
Always looking forward to our podcast. Looking forward to seeing you, man.
Look, it's exciting today. There's a very special guest that we have with us today. He's always been very sporty since young, playing cricket, hockey and also swimming. He grew up with two brothers. He's always said that his sport is the best way to deal with stress of life. He's done 5 Ironman races, so he must be a person that really likes pain. He's done 5 Comrades and he's done 12 Argus. I don't know who does this to their body, but we're going to find out a little bit more about him. He says he also found purpose for doing races when the Chalk Cow started in 2008, and has been a part of his life ever since. He's lost his mom, dad and brother to cancer, so that's also something that's very close to his heart, but he's also always willing to take out time and help others around him. You do the introduction, because if I do, my eyes are going to well up with tears and I'm going to end up crying.
We are so honored to have you, and thank you for joining us on the Live Beyond podcast. Mr. Stephen Proudfoot.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, Mac. Really appreciate the time to be here and to just really chat around, as you say, what makes a difference. A lot of people sit back in their daily work environment, and they say they want to make a difference to somebody and somebody else, and they don't really get the chance.
Right.
And I just feel I'd like to tell a little bit of the story around myself, how I got involved, and hopefully the rubble from this is that people get that internal drive to actually do something, and rather than talk about it, actually commit to doing something and making life better for other people. And in our instance, obviously due to our drive in terms of Chalk, is to look after kids that are going, and more specifically families that are going through that little bit of a swear word, cancer, and just helping out people, and as I say, the family as a whole through that experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're going to talk a lot about cancer, childhood cancer specifically, as well as your work with Chalk. But first of all, we always want to know about our guests. And tell us about yourself. Who's Stephen Proudfoot? Where you were born, where you were raised, what inspires you, what makes you happy, sad.
And what were you like when you had a lot more hair?
Slower. No, so Boyke from the East. I think is about the best to sum me up. The family.
So the East Rand, right?
East Rand. The family, my folks brought up in Kensington.
Right.
Then we moved to Edenvale. And then subsequently from there, we went to Bedfordview, and where majority of my life, the family have been living. So if I really have to sum up, in terms of primary school within the Bedfordview area, and then went to JP.
JP Boys.
JP Boys.
There we go.
There's a lot of history, and you talk about gears. All you see is the black and white. And it's just a really good grounding in terms of community schooling, and besides the community that JP is, and with a very strong old boys influence. Not only in supporting the school and making the school what it is also and has always been a good grounding in my life. And that talks to being involved with people with very different backgrounds, but then ultimately getting and aligning to one goal, and the vehicle to that was often sport.
Right.
And so absolutely sport crazy school.
Yeah.
And
but you grew up in Kensington. Were you?
How much? I was more into the folks were in Kensington, and then they moved into Edenvale, and then we from Edenvale went to primary school there, and then from Edenvale we did move to Bedfordview, but attended JP Boys High.
Right. Were you like a first team? So obviously, you get to high school, under 14, did you make under 14A, under 16A, and then went to go play for first team? So did you get that colours blazer?
I did do. In fact, in my matric year, I represented South African schools at hockey.
So you're a Springbok?
Junior Springbok.
Yeah, you're a
baby Victor, yes. So, yes, so that was always key in terms of that environment. Cricket as well, made the first side. In fact, captained hockey and cricket all the way through, and then just in matric was vice captain for the first cricket team.
Right,
nice.
But yes, also Nuffield in that day made that side. So from a cricket perspective, so very much sports orientated.
Right.
In fact, if you go back to my father, he actually made Quagga's rugby. Quagga's rugby was the under 21 side. Just obviously leaning towards whether you go into
the Springboks. Yeah, so it's like the baby box.
The junior side to the full Transvaal side at that point in time. So he was a very good sportsman himself.
Did that influence you in any way in your?
We were just a sports crazy family. Brother is very similar. They all made the first sides, provincial sides at school. So, yes, really influenced. And I think, as your introduction said there, Mac, is that sport is a great balance. In this life we're living at the moment, I call it the rubber band syndrome. You can stretch a rubber band so far until something snaps.
Yes.
Right.
And if you don't have a balance between in your life and where we are so crazy with our work environment, and then without an outlet, we are going to get to a point that something's going to snap. And therefore, that grounding with the ability to leverage sport and the discipline that's involved. I think in your podcast you mentioned the discipline about getting up at 4:00 in the morning to go and run. But the benefits of that is you actually see the sunrise.
Right.
Your mind is
this theme
up.
comes up again, hey? You wake up and you see every single sunrise. 365 sunrises if you wake up every day.
Correct. But it's the fact that it's clearing your mind. It's the ability then to assess what is going to happen that day. Where you're going to focus on and what you got to concentrate on achieving within that day.
You declutter.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. So that's again is just if you go in through background from my perspective, very well balanced. In that older brothers, competitive. So there was always that competitive element to it. But
how many brothers were you?
So 3 in total, and then eldest brother Ryan, and then Garth, and then myself. And unfortunately, Garth did pass away at the age of 44.
Right.
Sorry to hear that. Through cancer, and again, that was a big loss. I think for anyone, especially the folks, it's not in terms of the lineage of how life should actually.
No parent wants to bury a child. No parent wants to.
Correct. So it was really it knocked us, But in the same breath, upon reflection, it's a driver as well, because it was to fall back and decide, you've got to get out there, you've got to help people now, and with that in mind, 2008 was that opportunity to then get involved with Chalk, and what Chalk stood for,
right.
and effectively help out people, not only people but society. And like I said initially, it's all good to speak about doing something,
right?
But actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely.
Let's have some water. Let's have some water. You fast forwarding to where we want to get to eventually. Because the one thing that's also of great interest to me, and this is something that we speak about all the time.
Yeah.
And that it's easy to, play sport. You're at school, you're active, you're doing all of this, get to varsity. But then there comes a period when when all of that ends, you get into the rat race, as you say. That rubber band thing. You know what I mean? At some point that snaps, and you remember, I used to play sport, I used to play hockey, I used to be active, I used to do this and this. But I mean, you've been in the pharmaceutical industry for years. You're always on the road, you're traveling, you're doing this. At what point did you ever stop playing sport and then get back into it? Or have you always been active? Because that's the thing for many of us to say, we did sport, we got through high school, got through varsity, maybe those that played for varsity rugby or whatever, but then they get into the rat race and they forget about all of that.
Yeah.
So I think fortunately, I've always been involved in sport. So even getting involved into the rat race, there was always an outlet. So initially was still to continue playing at a high level of standard for both cricket and hockey. I'm showing my age here, but if we go back to the cricket environment, the Premier League, you used to play with the likes of Clive Rice.
Wow.
So Alan Curry. It was the Transvaal players, senior players, playing in that league on the Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
So, Mac, to answer you there, I did have that fortunate experience and ability to continue playing sport after school.
Yeah.
But there was always a nagging in the back of my mind that post this active, competitive environment, I wanted to do something for myself.
Yeah.
And that obviously leads off into that promissory note around, that Comrades. That Comrades is exciting. It's something else. It takes time. It's going to distract me from playing cricket and hockey, which is a totally different skill.
Yes.
Where it's more explosive fitness that you require as opposed to that endurance.
Yeah.
And 2000 came around, and was that first year that Comrades opened up to the 12-hour cutoff.
Yes.
And
what was it before?
11 hours. So
what? The extra hour.
So for all the guys, if you're not running under 11 hours, you're not a real Comrades runner.
Anyway,
real cut-off time is 11 hours, guys.
You have hit the nail on the head.
11 hours.
Okay, so old school is always 11 hours. And effectively, it was that enticement to go and do something different, because I'd really got to the end of my competitive cricket and hockey.
Yeah, you're a Bali now.
Basically, I think you can actually see it, that as you get older in those competitive sports, your mouth works a lot harder than your legs. So you are always confronting a decision from the umpire. You actually are really, you can see it, and that you get to a point that you know that the mind is still willing, but the body
says no.
It says no. And
at what point is this in terms of your schooling life when you realize that it's time to hang up?
I think again it's realization that the youngsters that are coming through, you're reacting to what you want to do, but you're just a little bit too slow. You know, you know the game. You can still be a good participant and contribute to the team.
Right.
However, and you know what needs to be done. But when you've got somebody that's physically faster than you and dribbles past you, the ability to then run back and tackle becomes less and less. And it just gets to that point that sort of late 30s, the body is not as agile, as quick, responsive as it should be at that high level.
Is this after varsity?
Yes, so this is going.
So you were still playing competitively while you were working when you started at your early point of your career. Wow.
Yeah. So again, and that's the disciplines that are involved in still carrying out the job function, as well as then over the weekends and during the week, the training required to maintain that level of competency to be considered in your first team.
Yes. Before we continue, thank you for following the Live Beyond podcast. Please press the subscribe button. And in the section below, leave your comments. Let us know what you think about the podcast and any future guests you would like to see. Also, would like to say thank you to our partners and our sponsors for making this platform possible. And we continue. Yeah.
So, but what are you doing with family? Because I'm sure at this point in time, there must be like a poppy involved, falling in love and getting married and all of that. And, you know, sort of starting a life as a father and husband.
Absolutely. I get reminded that I'm a bit of a late bloomer and that the question was only asked around the age of 30. So, although I'd been going out with Sue for a good 6 years prior to that, it eventually got into the point that, okay, now everything is falling in line. There's now needs to be full commitment all the way around. And effectively, that's what happened in that. It was a combination of more that this work was getting more and more a priority in the life, and then, you know, in terms of family and the commitments to that, it's imperative that you now make that decision around where you want to be in getting the life balance,
work-life love balance. Yes,
correct. Yeah, the total spectrum.
Tell us a bit more about work in your career, and
so. As Mac had mentioned there, very much involved in the pharmaceutical business, financially trained. And
so you're an accountant, bean counter.
I've done articles and I have completed my BCom. I didn't quite get to the CA perspective of it, but through that, started off first 10 years odd in looking after financial management.
Okay.
And then what attracted me to supply chain, value chain, is the proposition around decisions that need to be made almost on an hourly basis.
Right.
I always say this to my financial friends, and to the extent that they are retrospectively looking at results that have been made on decisions at a point in time.
Right. Yeah.
So on a monthly review, they will be looking at why certain sales didn't occur during that month.
Yeah.
But they're not making those decisions. They're critiquing it retrospectively.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas value chain, supply chain, there's something that's incurring. Shipment is stuck in customs. How do you facilitate that release in order to ensure that product is available for a patient at the end?
Yes.
I mean, it's very, in the business, it's patient-centric.
Yeah.
So if you don't get product readily available, ultimately, the patient
could cost lives.
Yes.
could.
Yeah.
the impact of that.
So essentially,
is
you
critical.
like, you like being challenged and solving problems on the fly, right?
Correct.
And don't be shy to drink water. We won't. Have some water. Let's have some water. You know. We wish it could have been beer, but you know, we'll get there. We'll get there.
So that again is in terms of from a professional aspect. I've been with Aspen Pharmacare for over 20 years.
Right.
Wow.
And again, just to see that company as a South African company and effectively going worldwide, and really a successful story, and driven by the CEO, Stephen Sard, really making a difference. And again, to be number 1 or 2 in South Africa. And if you just get a context to where Aspen is, roughly 26% of their turnover now is only South African based.
Right.
So it's really now become an international company, and globally supporting manufacturing and really the patient needs, and ensuring that we are driven and expediting product to the patient, and ensuring that there isn't a break in that supply chain that potentially could put a person's life at risk.
Right.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you then, so you obviously then decide at the age of 30 that you want to run your first Comrades, right?
Yes.
You've done with cricket. You're no longer playing with the lighties. They're dribbling circles around you, and you're like, no, I'm not. I'm done with this, right?
Yes.
Why Comrades? Why was that the first sort of, could I say bucket list thing? You could have decided to do the doozy. You could have decided to do the epic Kilimanjaro. Why specifically Comrades? Because you weren't always around it, because you were always cricket and hockey player.
Correct. So I think the Comrades is always Bruce Fordhouse. Just synonymous with something that, you could see that achievement. And a goal was that through the background of cricket and hockey, always gave you a good level of fitness.
Yeah.
And there was that spin-off to running. So that effectively allowed the natural progression into getting the fitness to the endurance side of the rather than the explosive hockey and cricket.
So you bought your first poly shorts. Were you running in poly shorts back in those days?
Absolutely.
Thank goodness nobody runs in those things anymore.
It was the
what
silk
short?
For
poly shorts. It's like underwear.
Exactly.
I know. There's a hill.
Poly shorts. They were made of like nylon. They used to be like luminous colors. There was green. There was yellow, but like they didn't sit nicely.
Yeah. No, they were. I wouldn't say a fashion statement, but they were practical.
I can't imagine you in poly shorts on the bike, doing 2 loops on the 94.7.
I can actually even make that one worse. In that my last Ironman, I did some absolute rookie mistakes and changed up and put a tri-suit on that was far too tight.
Wow.
But it was the new branding from the Bethview Athletics Club. And I thought, be loyal to them. I've got to partake in the new tri-suit.
Yeah.
So even to the extent that I went out just to do a practice cycle.
Yes.
And I realized this was going to be a little bit too tight.
Yeah.
In my wisdom, I thought I would drop the tri-suit down to my waist.
Yes.
And then when I get to the run, I'll cycle with the normal cycle top. And then on the run, I'll just pull up the tri-suit and it shouldn't be a problem.
Yes.
Unfortunately, this tri-suit around the waist formed a tourniquet.
Wow.
So this was cutting into my waist, restricting, basically
everything.
The blood flow and everything. Wow. I was only drinking. I was not eating on the actual cycle. And I got halfway and I was in absolutely a state because I knew I was in trouble.
Yeah.
So literally there, fortunately, I did a fuff. I actually had my costume underneath, and I dropped my tri-suit.
Yes,
and
you ran in your underwear.
Basically, I was then in my Speedo for 90 kilometers, old school, doing the second lap.
Wow.
At the Ironman.
You're a champ. So Stephen, now that we know you did it before Faf du Plessis, right? He did it at the rugby, you did it for Ironman.
Correct.
When would you say was, that was the first decision that you made to say you're going to turn your life around and you're going to start running Comrades? It's a difficult decision to get involved in endurance sport.
Yes.
What did it take? And, when you made that decision, did you know that this is going to be something that you're going to do for the rest of your life? Because it looks like you haven't stopped.
Yeah. So you can't do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one. That's the key. And through the commitment in doing Comrades, it lent itself that I ended up becoming a member of the Bedford Youth Athletics Club.
Okay.
And I think that's another important factor, is that you're partaking, I call it, okay, so for me, it's a typical road warrior. I basically put it down to partaking versus competing.
Yeah.
The end goal is to complete and ensure that I put that last foot over the finish line. And when you join into a club, you've just got a whole array of athletes at different levels. And what that does is that if you're seeing an athlete that's better than you, it pushes you. You're trying to actually then align and see if you can actually be more competitive and what is required. Because one of the big things that I remember when I started running out and the cut-off times, and when people talk about you need to do a sub 3 hour, and then they bring it back and they're saying, but you've got to run at less than 5 minutes 52.
Yeah.
And then people start talking about the 2 second difference. And you actually then realize that over that cumulative distance, those 2 seconds add up.
Yeah.
And it's around about what is required in terms of getting your body more tuned to running at that speed. But I think it's also, for me, is when you're part of a club, you just get involved with so many people with different goals, and the interaction with the other members is again helps in terms of the training. And when you're running and you're having a bad day, somebody will come up next to you and effectively say, "Come, let's run together and ensure that we finish even the training run." So again, that spills over into races and the likes as well. So that I found was part and parcel of the package of taking up the discipline of endurance events, was the social interaction with the club members and everybody from different walks of life, but all with the common goal of completing, say, the Comrades.
So that's crazy though, because Madman over there trains on his own.
No, I don't.
He trains on his own. He trains on his own. In the beginning, you're always part of groups, clubs, etc. Right? But it's even with clubs and groups and that, it goes up and down. You know, some other guys fall off the wagon. Then this one isn't there for training or whatever. But I mean, his discipline is out of this world. And he literally does train on his own. Which club are you? Which club are you part of? Which club?
I think for me, endurance, it's also an opportunity to spend time on your own for deep thought. And a lot of the time, I wake up in the morning and I'm out at 4:30. 5 a.m. It's a time for me for meditation, But these days, I mean, the community doesn't have to be physical, We have virtual communities. I mean, we're all on Strava. When you're on Strava, it really feels like, you're
not running
and
alone.
Everyone is tracking everyone's activity and everyone's time. So it still does feel like community. And when you go out to races, we all get together, and it still feels like a community. But so I understand, and I know where you're coming from when you're talking about community and having people around it. For me, that was probably that is still probably the biggest outtake is in the relationships that you form. You're meeting new people and you get to learn a lot of new things from a lot of different people, right?
So with this sort of community that you then built up around running and training, etc., how did Chalk come up? How did that become a part of your life?
No way,
because that's a different community.
I want to know what your experience is. What your experience was with your first
Comrades.
Before we get to that.
Before we get to that,
actually,
yes.
Right? Okay. So you did the training. You started with the club.
Yeah.
How much training did you do before you started?
So I think there's always that benchmark of trying to do 1,000 kilometers from January, and then it was around June for Comrades.
1,000 kilometers when in your car
in the lead up.
Does driving to the gym count?
So that really was always a goal to try and get as close.
The mileage, right?
The mileage in terms of that, to have the confidence that you've got it in you, and that the probably tended towards 800 odd kilometers as a minimum. The first Comrades, so I've completed 5 Comrades, partaken in 6.
Yeah.
The first one.
So you didn't have your chip with you?
No, I did have, but unfortunately, I just missed the cutoff.
Right.
I was literally, I could see the end in sight, and I ran out of time literally with the 12-hour cutoff. And I couldn't understand why and what went wrong until I dissected it into it. And it was a coolish morning, and it was an uprun. So in Durban, I hadn't tied up my shoelaces. And then right at the start, I tied them up. And I was 15, 20 kilometers in, and all of a sudden started to cramp around my ankle. Like, now that's not a normal place for you to cramp while running. It's normally your calves or your quads. And I couldn't understand it. But eventually I managed to plow all the way through. But with that cramp, it started to go up the legs, into the calf, into the quads. And literally you've seen it on many of the broadcasts, where you've got the runner running in and he's got one leg, stiff leg.
Yes.
I was one of those in the end, because I had favored everything, and basically what had happened was that I just didn't have the mobility, and effectively was 2Ks from the end, and didn't.
So had you tied your laces too tight? So
tied the laces too tight, and it restricted the blood flow around the ankle, and then
you keep doing this. At first,
exactly, it's a common theme. It's a common theme. So and again, it's all learning. So
so this was Comrades number what?
That was the first one.
Oh, is it the first one?
Yes.
And then I went back and completed the other 5.
I had a similar experience with my first Comrades. I got cut off at around 64.
Yeah.
At the 64 mark, I happened to be running with a bus, and I remember that year they had changed the route because there were some roadworks. And the bus driver that we were running with had miscalculated the cutoff time at 60 at one of the cutoffs by like 15 minutes.
Sure.
And we were just running thinking that, we've made it. We've got like 25 odd Ks to go. And we got there and we got cut off. That was my first experience. So how did that feel for you?
So basically, disappointing in terms
It's
of
terrible.
It's like you've done all that commitment and the job's not done.
Yeah.
But in the same sense, it's a driving force to say,
Right.
I need to go and complete that now.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, it was the next year. I went back and I was consistently average.
Yeah.
So all my 4 times were around 10:50. And then
well within the 11-hour cutoff.
correct, and you did mention that up. And then my last one was 11:15, and I thought,
you didn't make it.
So now, old school.
Yeah.
Do we actually continue with that? And that was in the interim. To this, a friend of mine's brother came back from overseas, Robbie Riccardi, and he had been heavily involved in Ironman and triathlon.
Yeah.
And again, it was the sense around there's a new challenge.
Yes.
So there was a crossover then, and I said, but I cannot, swim. I'm an average swimmer,
Yes.
but I have swum, but can I actually go and swim 3.8 kilometers in the sea,
Right.
and then comfortably get on the bike, do the 180 and the 42k run? And Robbie came and said, Stephen, we will train you up and we'll get to the point that it becomes second nature. So that was also an overlap into getting into triathlons. And again, just the discipline with the Ironman, it's a lot more time consuming.
Yeah.
So
in the training, right?
In the training.
Right.
So if you have a look at the running, you can get away with running in the mornings and even doing a long run on Saturday, 2 hours, 3 hours, you've done a long run. Whereas if you go and do a long cycle, you probably the whole morning's gone.
Yes.
So that transition into triathlon, and you talk about the family and the balance. I actually did my 5 Ironman all on majority mornings only training.
Right. What I'm interested to know is, with endurance sport, is there anything that what are the lessons that you've taken out of, your participation, the intensity of training, and completing, because those are quite difficult things. I mean, with Comrades, I think Comrades is harder on the day and easier on the training, but I think that doing a full Ironman is a lot more training, and that the actual racing day is a lot more enjoyable. But
Correct.
with both disciplines, there's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a lot of preparations. You set your goals. You have to be consistent. How do you apply those lessons to family and your career and just generally, and how you lead your life?
So Lloyd, you've hit the nail on the head. In any one of these endurance races, you're going to have a hard time. There's no ways that you go through an endurance race and there isn't a perfect patch.
Yeah.
And really, on reflection, that's life to a T.
Yes.
You're going to have your good days, you're going to have your bad days.
Right.
And it's just the mental aptitude in terms of how you're going to deal with it. So for me, in terms of the ability to recognize what's going wrong, what can actually truly be addressed and to rectify it, and what is needed. So if you have a look at endurance sport, a lot of the time is nutrition is key to it.
Yeah.
So if you are now just turning your mind off because you're getting caught up in the moment, it will hurt you.
Yeah.
You will not have the right nutrition, and you will suddenly go into a slump. You can quickly rectify that and start to take whatever your nutritional supplements are, and you will pick up and regain the ability to then go at the pace that's required. And that you can apply to work, life, in all spheres, is to really just assess and dissect what is truly the root cause of what is going right, what's going wrong, and what what you need to, whether it's you or a collective needs to do to get it in the right direction again. So that, and you said to yourself in terms of your thought processes in the morning and reflection. That's happening consistently in an endurance event, and it's about how you're dealing with those. They're let's call it a pressurized situation. The pressurized situation is that you've got to complete it in a certain time, and you've got to make then the right decision to address whatever's going right and wrong. But then in the positive side, when things are really going well, you're really enjoying it, and you're engaging with everybody, and it again makes it so much easier. And I think that again reflects back on the discipline and the lead up to that event, that you have got that base that you can complete that event.
What has been is there any difficult or traumatic experience that you've gone through in your life, and that you can look back and say, actually taking part in endurance sport or a sport of any kind for that matter has actually helped me.
Using exercise as an outlet, almost
it's helped me cope, and it's actually helped me get through this, and this is how, and you continue to use sport to actually manage that.
For me, in terms of the direct correlation to the events, was to then get involved. The traumatic event around my passing of my brother at the age of 44.
Right.
There was just that recognition that it's quite emotional to the fact that it occurred, but also then to try and look at society and seeing if there is any ability to try and make a difference. And to that point, by chance, got involved with Grant and Karen Bain. Lost their daughter Jess 2008, and part of the BFW running club. LB Riccardi came back and said, we're looking to do something because Karen and LB were working together at the IQE group, and they wanted to just have a legacy, something around Jess, and build this legacy.
Right.
And out of that, we decided that we were going to cycle the 947. Just with a slight difference in that we were going to take the ice cream bike around. And there were 8 of us that decided, well, on top of that, is there any way that we can do something? And the theme even now is Ride for a Purpose. And to which, with Grant and Karen's experience through CHOC, they thought that it would be a good way to pay back and to start to raise awareness of CHOC and what they do, and then obviously raise money.
Okay. Talk to us about CHOC a little bit, just in terms of what that is.
Okay, so CHOC is an organization. They are heavily involved countrywide in terms of giving family and kids with cancer the ability for that kid to go through treatment.
Yeah.
And then what often happens is that kids in the rural areas can't actually come in for treatment. So what CHOC offers is a house where the family and the kid can stay while the kid is receiving cancer treatment for that week. So it's those type of needs funding in order to support that.
So it's actually raising funds for the families to be able to come and spend time with their loved ones. And I'm presupposing here that we're probably talking, when you're saying people from rural areas, we're talking about the poorest of the poor, predominantly black South Africans. Do you have any experience in terms of because we grew up in, I grew up in growing up in the township, I've hardly ever came across
somebody that
cancer.
It wasn't one. I don't know whether it wasn't spoken of but we didn't know what cancer was.
Right.
We had no idea.
Yeah, is it just that it was probably never diagnosed or
misdiagnosed,
misdiagnosed, right?
You've hit such a pertinent point in that early detection, especially in childhood cancers, the recovery rate is so much more. But that awareness around cancer and getting into ground level around the people and making them aware of the early signs of cancer is paramount importance.
Yeah.
And that's also part and parcel of CHOC and what they do.
Yeah.
And trying to get into some of the clinics and promote that around early diagnosis and awareness.
Yeah.
It's really awareness.
So
of those
education.
symptoms,
right, yeah.
To actually then really bring that kid in for an assessment. As soon as you bring that into the system, then there's a very good chance that there is full recovery.
So doing something like that, right? Yeah. It's one thing to run, to exercise, to do all of these things, because they're personal things, bucket list stuff, you know what I mean? When that change happens, that I'm now riding for CHOC, I'm riding to raise funds, I'm riding for a purpose. How much of a difference does that make in your training, in your commitment, in you getting beyond that finish line? Because I think when you stop doing it for yourself and you start doing it for somebody else, it's something totally different.
Correct. And I mentioned the ice cream bike. Now, basically, that's 70 kilograms by itself. So why we chose that and get that around 94.7 kilometers is a massive effort. But that effort it's small when you actually do a comparison to what a kid with cancer is going through on a daily basis.
Right.
So it's around that. You can't call it a sacrifice, but it's actually understanding that pain, that you are now trying to get a bike around a very hilly course and committing yourself with the team in getting that around. So the suffering that you are enduring is mild compared to what a kid could be going through.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, the family associated with the kid as well.
Yeah, you had the same experience when you were doing.
So I think the last 10Ks of Ironman, this is exactly what Stephen said to me, right? I had absolutely nothing left in me, nothing. It was just one foot in front of the other. And you had earlier on, you had told me about going from one lamppost to the next, right? Run one lamppost, walk briskly the next, run, and even that I was failing to do because I was finished. I was broken. Stephen came out of the rain, I don't know from where, and he ran alongside me. And he reminded me, in jeans.
And Crockett and Jones shoes.
And said to me, Mac, remember why you're doing this. You're doing this for a greater purpose than yourself. Think about Andre, think about Sharon, let's keep going. I'm going to be right here next to you, and I'm going to make sure that we finish this. And I think even people that were watching on that sort of tracker saw the difference that made. I think that propelled me to eventually get beyond that finish line. Otherwise, I was never going to do it because personally, I had nothing left in me. But having him there alongside me, having those words, listening to him, talking to me every step of the way, helped me to get to that finish line. And I think for me, that's exactly what you're speaking about. That once you start doing something for a greater purpose and something beyond you, because my pain, my suffering for Ironman will never equate to what Sharon is feeling, or any family, whose child, husband, or son has died as a result of a drunk drive or reckless drive on the road. It'll never equate to that. I mean, I'm going to run Ironman, finish it, and go home and relax.
Yeah.
I'm never going to bring back any one of those loved ones. You know what I mean? So it's exactly that you're speaking to, and it's incredible. It's something that you can't actually explain unless you do it.
Yeah. So and then. So this was at the beginning of was you guys starting the cows.
Yeah, and I think what's unique about the cows is that we, to our ethos.
You have very weird uniform. Let's start there, right?
Yeah. So we basically went out and tried to get 8 uniforms to cycle in, and the only ones we could actually get were 8 cow outfits.
Wow.
But it's become synonymous with the actual Choc cows.
Where did you find the outfits?
Who
made cow outfits
actually,
and kept them in the wardrobe?
So I think what actually had transpired was that Parmalat and they had some promotion. And there were these car outfits that we managed to get hold of.
Yes.
Right.
And that was then decided that we'll go around in the woolly car outfit. So that was also, in terms of the suffering, is that it's a fully woolen suit. And the heat, you're not going to get away from it. It's not intentional, but it's self-inflicted in terms of that. That heat and whatever. It's not the lycra that you are cycling in today.
It's incredible that you guys. The one guy I know, Richard is the guy that does the. Richard Lesky is constantly on the ice cream bike.
Yes.
It doesn't have brakes. You have to literally. Step off of it and to be able to hold it back, and and a lot of you guys do double loops when you're doing a lot of these races. So you literally go out in the morning and you do your race, and then you come back and you do a second loop to help.
To help the team with
through. Yeah, so quite a remarkable story in that in that first year. With 3 weeks to go, we set ourselves a target of around 60,000 rand to be raised.
Yeah.
In that first year, we raised 240,000 rand.
Wow.
And that was just ignited that we could potentially take this to greater heights.
Yeah.
15 years down the line, we've just passed the 50 million rand funds raised for Choc.
That's incredible. Let's drink to that. Let's drink to that. Yes.
Wow. Kudos.
Well done.
Wow.
Yes.
Living a life with purpose.
So again, very intentionally as well, as part of the Choc cows, we've always made it well aware that we take full records of every single rand that has been raised, actually then goes through to the projects that are required. We've got a subcommittee with the Choc organization, and we then approve whatever funds have been raised, then to which projects they might go to.
Right.
So psychosocial support, and or if a lot of the wards required a major refurbishment. And that's what we've been involved with over the years. So we are now, that's a collective, but the Chock Cows, that's what we've done. And we've branched out. We've also branched out into the Comrades, into Ironman. So it's swimming, mid-mar, and that diversity has also helped. As you go down into this, the economy is, it's not firing on all cylinders, and it's very difficult every year to go and raise this type of money. But it's that type of thing that it's grown, and it's really it hasn't been only dedicated to the Chock cycling events at 947, but we've actually managed to get involved in other sports, and again leveraging it. And the Comrades was, I think there was about 1.6 million rand raised through the runners running in the Chock outfits.
Wow.
So that is just, and it always boils down to somebody that lost Jess way back, the legacy and what that stands for today.
Right.
So Stephen, living a life of purpose, right? Living life beyond who you are. As earlier on, you spoke about ticking off the bucket list, doing all of these wonderful adventures, etc., etc. But when you set your mind to doing something for others,
yes,
what does that do for you psychologically? What have you done purposely in your life to say, I'm now living beyond myself and I'm now going to live for others? What propelled it? What inspires it? And what keeps you going?
Again, it's you can talk to anyone, and it's different for every individual. But for me, is just knowing that whatever efforts we're putting in is helping people out. I think in terms of the funds raised, we're not aware of who's getting the treatment, but knowingly that you've contributed to that is it is rewarding in terms of that we haven't sat back. We've actually got off our seats. We're doing things, and basically what that is doing is helping the society as a whole. And that's the most rewarding part about it. And it's not being an individual approach to it. It's a collective around what we are doing to help society. And everybody's got a struggle out there. And if you can just get off and do something that you enjoy. I mean, so really much the cycling is something that we continuously do. But the rub off or the benefits that you're doing for society and making a difference, it's that one step to do that. Don't talk about it. Commit yourself to doing something that is going to do, like you did for Andre and the awareness around cycling safety. It's imperative that somebody's actually put their hand up to do it. No one would be aware of it unless you did that. So that is for me is a key driver to it, and continuously going forward and being involved with, say, the Chock Cows.
Oh, beautiful. That's fantastic. Well, Mr. Proudfoot, we salute you.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you for making time to come and talk to us. It's been an honor to have you here. 15 years, 50 bars. I think it's gone a long way in helping a lot of children infected with cancer as well as their families. And we wish you all the best, and keep doing the good work.
Thank you.
And keep inspiring ourselves and others.
Thank you for the time. And Mac, again, just if we reflect back on the Ironman and the last 10Ks, for me, that was just an absolute honor to do it. But it's really just that to drive another person and to achieve what you have set yourself out to do, that for me was just as emotional as it was for you when you crossed the line, because just to have that ability to potentially help out in the situation was an absolute honor.
Stephen, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone that has joined us. It's been absolutely amazing. And as you heard, it just takes that one decision. It takes that one decision that you need to make in your life to say, what can I do for somebody else? Because, waking up in the morning for yourself, coffee sounds better, the bed is warm, but if you're going out there and leading a purposeful life, you can actually make a difference and live beyond who we are and make a difference in other people's lives, man. It's absolutely amazing. Incredible. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Cheers. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Of course. Cool. Boom.
Are you sure?
Is it
we've got to take a pic. Let's take a pic.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, all cameras cut.